Good morning, everyone. The situation in Ukraine seems to be escalating when what we should be doing is everything we possibly can to de-escalate the situations and the tension and not to ramp up hatred against the Russian people in general and Russian culture and Russian history, which seems to be what's happening all over the mainstream media and coming from the Western politicians as well. Now, just to reiterate what I've said before, what I think most people realize is you cannot believe a word of what you hear on the Western mainstream media, because we've just had 2 years where they have lied consistently and followed a narrative coming from the World Health Organization, etc., the Nudge unit in the UK, the SAGE unit, which has ramped up fear quite unrealistically against a virus which 99.9% of people survived. Nobody needed to take an experimental injection for. And now it's coming out that these injections that millions and millions of people took are actually causing huge amounts of adverse health effects, and all the conditions listed on the documents that were secret, going to be secret, but have come out now, show over 1,000 conditions which are being caused by these injections. So over the last 2 years, I think most people realize you simply cannot trust the whole conglomerate of powers that be, the media political complex. But now they're spinning another narrative over Ukraine, and this is even more dangerous because if we continue to follow what they're saying, we're going to end up in World War III, and we've got to avoid that. This conflict in Ukraine was the most easily avoidable conflict ever. We did not in the West, I say we, let's talk about the powers that be, who have agendas driven by the World Economic Forum and by the Council of Foreign Relations, who want to expand NATO in the EU into the East and bring Ukraine into NATO and the EU. And that's obviously been a bad idea for decades. And actually, assurances were given to the Russians that that wouldn't happen. And yet, for years and years and years, they've been poking the bear, and the bears responded. Now, obviously, I don't like the fact that people are being, killed and displaced and made homeless in Ukraine. Obviously, that's a terrible thing. But this is avoidable. It was avoidable, and more conflict and escalation is avoidable now. But what we have is this puppet actor, Zelensky, who has been installed as the president of Ukraine, going round and unprecedentedly given an opportunity to directly address the parliaments of Britain, Canada, and then this week America, and all of the people there in the parliament stand up and clap like seals to attention, to clap the narrative without any kind of critical thinking whatsoever. But let's just look into some of the stories which have come out in the media to show that they lie. The very first one was the 13 soldiers on Snake Island who sort of said an expletive to the Russians in the ship, apparently, and then they all were bombed and died a heroic death. Well, that turned out to be false, because the Russians didn't kill them. They took the island, they took them prisoner, and then they released them, and they're all fine. Then there was the ghost of Kiev. Some jet fighter pilot apparently took out 10 Russian jets over the skies of Ukraine, and that turned out to be from a video game footage. It wasn't true. And then there was the report a couple of weeks ago that the Russians are trying to bomb a nuclear power station, and you saw the pictures there on the television of this bright light coming down and apparently stopping over the reactors, and then that was supposedly a fire. But anybody who's got any kind of military training, as they told me, said this is very obviously, it's a flare. It wasn't even a fire that they showed, it was a flare Everyone should have known that who's a reporter. They make a bright light, but it wasn't a fire, but they told the world that this is what it was. Again, fake news, saying something that didn't happen. Now, the problem with ramping up tensions, like the Western political leaders have been doing, is we're going to end up with a much bigger conflagration if we don't turn back from going down this path. So the UK's Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss, at the beginning encouraged British people to go and fight in Ukraine, which is ridiculous. I mean, you shouldn't be doing that as a foreign secretary. She's later denied that she said that, but it's on record. But she's also used very belligerent words against the Russian economy in general. She said we want to debilitate, cripple, degenerate the Russian economy. That's a deliberate strategy, as well as Western nations together giving huge amounts of arms to the Ukrainian army, which is full of neo-Nazis. That's not a good idea. So all of these things mean that the conflict is escalating. And in America, you've got even more crazy people. You've got Senator Lindsey Graham in America suggesting someone should assassinate Putin. Well, if that happens, I mean, that would be the start of World War III. Instantly. I mean, some of these people, it seems like they want a world war for their own perverse reasons. I don't know why anyone would want that, but some people want to think they're going to make some money out of it. They think they're going to sell some weapons. Well, you know, the money from weapon sales are no good if you're dead. I mean, these people are just psychotic idiots who want to do this. We need to ramp down tensions, not escalate them. And certainly this hatred which is being fabricated against all things Russian is absolutely appalling. No one would do this against any other nation, I don't think. I mean, if there was a war involving Saudi Arabia, which there is in Yemen, and Western powers again are arming Saudi Arabia to fight the Yemenis or a certain section of Yemeni society. No one's ramping up tensions against Saudi Arabia or Yemen, whichever side you're on. There's war in Congo, there's war in Somalia, there's war in Nigeria and other places around the world. But these things are not on our television screens at all. And there's a terrible, bloody war in Congo, which is one of the worst wars ever. It's been going on for decades, and the atrocities there are absolutely hideous, but nobody cares in the Western media political complex. It's only at the moment Ukraine is on our screens all the time, every day. But a lot of these people have interests, financial interests in Ukraine, not to mention the biolabs that at first were denounced as a conspiracy theorist, and then it came out that actually, yes, the US are funding something between 20 and 30 biological research facilities, as they call them. And that was admitted by the Undersecretary of State, Victoria Nuland, last week in the United States. But still people are saying this is a conspiracy theory when they've actually admitted that there are these bio labs. And now they haven't said they're bioweapons labs, but they contain all kinds of deadly pathogens from the Soviet era. So, you know, use your loaf as to what they are. You know, the wise course of action would be not to continue with ramping up sanctions, because one reason is they're not really going to hurt the regime in Russia. They'll hurt the ordinary people in Russia, as sanctions always do, but they don't hurt the regime. They find ways to brutalize what they need out of the population, just like Castro has done in Cuba. Cuba's had sanctions for 50 years plus, but it hasn't changed the regime there. They still have a communist regime, and the people are poorer than ever because they have to serve the people in power. So it doesn't do any good for the ordinary people, and it's going to backfire on the West really, really badly to try to cut off, bring a new Iron Curtain, an economic Iron Curtain down Europe again is going to hurt the West more than it hurts Russia. I mean, we've already got mass inflation in energy prices because of the ridiculous adherence to green ideology and trying to get out of fossil fuels and make all our energy from windmills and solar panels. And that's been the most ridiculously stupid political position all over the West that we've had for years by people who are all towing this green net zero nonsense. But this is now compounded by people saying, oh, we're not going to buy oil and gas that we need from Russia. Instead, we're going to buy it from Saudi Arabia and Venezuela. Well, I don't think Venezuela is interested. And, changing Russia for Saudi Arabia, really, seriously. I mean, if you're concerned about human rights, well, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So we need to de-escalate, and we need to stop hating Russians. Whatever you think about the Putin regime and what he's done, we shouldn't be isolating ordinary Russians, and we shouldn't be trying to extend this conflict, which is what some people seem to be trying to do. We need to try to bring it to an end, negotiate an end to this, and return to normal, and try to pick up the pieces and re-establish normal relations between all the countries involved.